This is the DAR Today podcast, and I'm your host, Brooke Bullmaster Stewart. Well, today, when this episode is broadcasting, it is Veterans Day, November 11th, and so much of what we do as DAR members, as many of you have heard so far on this podcast, has to do with honoring our military and our veterans. And when you think about the beginning of this society, it was to honor the Revolutionary War patriots that have fought. And of course, they were veterans as well. So that continues to be our mission here. And today we have a wonderful interview with the National Chair of the National Defense Committee, Sandy Raynor. You're going to love hearing from her and all that committee does within DAR. And then we'll also have the story of Poppies and also blue cornflowers that I know many of you will wear on Veterans Day and to honor the military. And we want to do a deep dive into that and why we have that as a tradition to honor those who have fallen. And it's a neat story found in the National Defender newsletter, which is really incredibly well edited and well written. And so we wanted to feature the story there written by Sandy Raynor, that National Chair of National Defense. And if you're not a subscriber yet, we hope that you will like and subscribe to this podcast. As you know, it always helps us out. It helps us reach more people. And as always, thank you so much for being here with us today. Sandy Raynor, thank you so much for being here with us today. Of course, you are the National Chair of the National Defense Committee. So happy you could join us.
Thank you, Brooke. It's great to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about your committee for those who might not know.
Well, the National Defense Committee is almost 100 years old. It was originally formed to recognize patriotic education and to inform the members. And that's one of our main missions still today, is to inform members. We do that primarily through the National Defender, which is published every 2 months online. And that publication started in the 1950s. One of the other things that our committee does is to recognize cadets in Reserve Officers Training Corps, Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, also known as ROTC and JROTC. And also we encourage chapters to reach into their communities and recognize adults and youth individually or in groups. We want to recognize those who demonstrate qualities of leadership, honor, courage, patriotism, and service.
So I had a young member ask me one time when I was a regent, and I think for new members now, they might also like to know, tell us the difference between your committee, the National Defense Committee, and Service for Veterans Committee and the DAR Project Patriot, because they kind of overlap a little bit, don't they?
The National Defense Committee certainly overlaps with a lot of committees within DAR, and certainly with DAR Service for Veterans and DAR Project Patriot. For DAR Project Patriot, their main goal is to recognize those who are on active duty or deployed and thank them for their service. DAR Service for Veterans recognizes our veterans and the volunteers who support them. The National Defense Committee also encourages the support of the military, our veterans, but also first responders, our police officers, fire department, emergency medical services, ambulance drivers, dispatchers, canine officers, emergency room doctors and nurses. So our first responders and our healthcare responders, the support to those entities primarily falls under the National Defense Committee, as well as recognizing youth and adults in our communities. We have 5 medals that fall under the National Defense Committee that chapters can award to people within their communities. The National Defense Committee also supports the Wear Red movement to remember everyone deployed. Again, this has overlap with the DAR Project Patriot Committee because each of our committees supports patriotism. We all have a component of that, and there's some overlap, but that there are some missions that are totally separate.
I love that you mentioned the wear red, and it's on Fridays, correct? Wear red on Fridays for everyone deployed.
Yes, we encourage everyone to wear red on Fridays. It starts a conversation, especially if you wear a DAR logoed shirt, red shirt on Fridays. It starts a conversation, and we can talk about DAR. We can talk about our missions of supporting our service members, our veterans, our first responders, wherever they are in the world, and however they're supporting our communities.
And you've mentioned the medals. Would you tell us about a couple of the different medals that your committee encourages chapters to give out to people?
Absolutely. We have actually 5 National Defense Medals. We have 3 that can be awarded to cadets. The Gold Reserve Officer Training Corps or ROTC medal is awarded in conjunction with a university or college ROTC program. In the high schools, the cadets are in junior ROTC, and the chapter can work with the unit leadership or the high school leadership to award that medal to a deserving cadet. We also have the DAR Outstanding Cadet Medal. That's a medal that can be awarded to police or fire department volunteer cadets, or to military affiliated units like Civil Air Patrol or Naval Sea Cadets, and many other cadet programs in the community. The other 2 National Defense Medals are the DAR Youth Leadership Medal. That can be awarded to individuals or groups who, again, display those qualities of service, leadership, patriotism, honor, and courage. And those youth should be in grades 5 through 11. The other National Defense Medal is the DAR Distinguished Citizen Medal. The DAR Distinguished Citizen Medal can be awarded to an adult age 18 or older, or to groups. Again, in the community, someone that has done something great for the community or is an outstanding leader. This is the only National Defense Award that goes to the State Society for approval. The state chair of the National Defense Committee actually approves the DAR Distinguished Citizen Medal. All the other National Defense Medals that I've talked about are awarded by the chapter in conjunction with the youth group, the ROTC or junior ROTC police or fire departments. Very easy to award. And all of these are available very inexpensively through the DAR store online.
And we'll put a link to that, especially to your page in the show notes. You're mentioning that Youth Leadership Award, which of course was, I believe it was just before the Wright administration, was called the Youth Citizenship Medal and Award, correct? That has always been one of my favorite things to award in our chapter. And I would tell each student that would receive this award that when you think about it, this is a medal and an award and a recognition of you as a person. Not, it's wonderful that our students will write essays and things like that for other committees. That is great. But this is a medal and a recognition purely for the fact of who you are as a person. You're a leader and you're kind and you take care of those around you. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So that's always been something that I've loved to be the chairman of in my chapter. So I would just encourage other chapters to really think about the ways they can recognize, right, with these medals. It's just fantastic.
You're absolutely right, Brooke. It's so easy for the chapters to reach out to their schools and youth groups in their communities and work with them to find deserving young people that should be awarded this medal. An additional thing I wanted to mention is the DAR Outstanding Cadet Medal was just approved in October of 2023 to be awarded to volunteer cadets within police departments, fire departments, emergency medical services departments. So this is another great way to recognize these young people, these cadets in your communities by awarding the DAR Outstanding Cadet Award within your fire, police department, or other emergency services departments.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think sometimes we get involved in our own committees, right? And we don't always hear all the news, all the announcements of things that have happened in the Wright administration. And it's really exciting that you're just saying that here because maybe some people did not know about that. But if they read the National Defender, I bet you they would know about that. I got to tell you, that National Defender is one of my favorite publications. It's amazing. You have a great editor, I think, as well, right?
Brooke, I'm so glad you asked me about that. The National Defender is very popular. We get so many compliments on it, and we have a great editor. Deborah Barrett has been the editor of the National Defender for the Wright administration and has just done a terrific job.
Yes. Yeah, every article is so timely. And then the timeline at the end of things that have happened. I find myself kind of going back into the other years just to see, it's amazingly well done. Just beautiful.
Thank you. We so appreciate all of the DAR daughters that take the time to provide submissions and photographs and articles for consideration for publication. We depend on, our own members contributing. And because the National Defense Committee has overlap with so many other committees, I've reached out to other national chairs and they've actually had, their national vice chairs or the national chairs or members within the committees themselves have submitted articles for publication.
And speaking of that overlap, I would encourage people too that, of course, at Continental Congress, every year, right, you have the patriotism luncheon, right? You three take turns, is that correct, hosting?
Brooke, the patriotism luncheon at Continental Congress has always been sponsored and hosted by the DAR Service for Veterans, National Defense, and DAR Project Patriot committees. Last year, we also added the Flag of the United States of America committee as a co-host. So while the three other committees take turns hosting each year, the Flag of the United States of America committee as a patriotic committee also helps with that luncheon.
Which is great to have all of those committees, right? Because I think you normally have upwards of, is it 500 people at one luncheon? Is it something like that?
Last year we had 650 attendees, so we hope to have even more this year. It's always a really exciting, uplifting, fun event, and we appreciated you last year. Opening with singing. That was
fun. That was fun to get to sing and people singing along. That was really amazing.
It was very uplifting. A great way to start the program.
And you had the best speakers always amazing speakers. So I would encourage everybody, the minute the Continental Congress announcements and things like that go out where we can purchase our luncheons and make our reservations, that's one not to miss always.
Yes, we're very excited to always have one of the introductory luncheons to the Continental Congress timeframe. It just sets the tone and gets everybody excited attending such a patriotic event. Brooke, one more thing. I want to remind everyone that the final service project for the Wright administration this year is patriotism. And so if the chapters and individuals would write thank you notes and take treats or care packages to veterans, to send them to active duty personnel, or take them to your local police or fire station, those thank you cards and care packages and treats are being tracked in the Service to America tally. There's more information about the annual National Service Project on the Service to America Committee page. It's on the bottom of the Service to America tally page. And also they can go to the Daughters Online community and get more information.
That's exactly right. You have a page there on the doc, on the Daughters Online community?
Yes, the National Defense Committee has a community on the doc, and also, of course, Service to America committee.
Oh, that's perfect, Sandy. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We love talking about the National Defense Committee, so we really appreciated you taking the time.
Brooke, thank you for having me today and letting me share additional information about the National Committee. It's been such an honor to serve in this national chair position. And I love also talking about the National Defense Committee.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. The Remembrance Day symbolism of the poppy began with a poem by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian who served as a World War I brigade surgeon for an Allied artillery unit. After getting a first-hand look at the carnage of the war, that spring he spotted a cluster of poppies growing on a ravaged battlefield. Struck by the sight of bright red blooms on the broken ground, McCrae wrote In Flanders Field, in which he channeled the voice of the fallen soldiers buried under those hardy poppies. Across the Atlantic, Moyna Michael read this poem in the Ladies' Home Journal just 2 days before the armistice. Inspired by McCrae's words, Miss Michael vowed to always wear a red poppy, starting with fabric from a department store. After the war ended, she returned to Athens, Georgia, and began making and selling red silk poppies to raise money to support the returning veterans. Moyna's campaign to create a national symbol for remembrance didn't get very far at first, but in mid-1920, she convinced Georgia's branch of the American Legion to adopt the poppy as its symbol. That September, the National American Legion voted to use the poppy as the official U.S. national emblem of remembrance. In 1922, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, or the VFW, was the first veterans organization to organize and lead a nationwide distribution of poppies before Memorial Day. The American Legion began its program in 1924. On the opposite side of the Atlantic, a French woman named Anna, also inspired by McCrae's words, had championed the symbolic power of the red poppy from the beginning. Invited to the United States to speak at the American Legion Convention about an International Allied Poppy Day, Madame Guérin helped convince the members to adopt the poppy as their symbol and joined her by celebrating National Poppy Day in the United States the following May. Back in France, Guérin had organized French women, children, and veterans to make and sell artificial poppies to fund the restoration of war-torn France. Within a year, Ms. Guérin brought her campaign to England, where in November 1921, the newly found Royal British Legion sold millions of silk flowers and raised significant funds to find employment and housing for Great War veterans. The next year, Major George Howson set up the poppy factory in Richmond, England, in which disabled servicemen made the fabric and paper blooms. Today, nearly a century after World War I has ended, millions of people in the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Belgium, Austria, and New Zealand don the red flowers every November 11th, known as Remembrance Day, to commemorate the anniversary of the 1918 armistice. Americans wear the symbolic red flower on Memorial Day to commemorate the sacrifice of the men and women who have given their lives fighting for their country. The Bleuet de France, or the blue cornflower, which is the French flower of remembrance, was created in 1960 by two nurses who provided medical attention to the wounded or mutilated during the Great War to help these soldiers recover a taste for life and support themselves. The nurses organized small workshops to make cornflower badges from fabric and paper. These badges were sold to the public, allowing veterans to earn a small income. Chosen for the blue uniform of the new conscripts, cornflowers also grew on the battlefields during the war and were readily available in eastern France. In addition, blue is the first color of the French tricolor flag. In 1935, the Bleuet de France began being sold every November 11th, and in 1957, May 8th was added for Victory in Europe Day for World War II. In 2012, the 11th of November also became the official day of remembrance for all who died in service of their country, including victims of terrorism, as a symbol of international solidarity. The quote we'd like to leave you with today is actually part of the poem In Flanders Field, which inspired the wearing of the red poppies and blue cornflowers. But instead of me reciting it, I'd love to play a bit of a Peanuts episode where Charlie Brown, Linus, and the gang are there in France and come across Flanders Field, where Linus tells them all about the significance. It's from an episode called What Have We Learned, Charlie Brown?
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks still bravely singing. Fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row. What have we learned, Charlie Brown?
Well, thanks for listening and be well, dear friends. Let's celebrate the stars and stripes forever and remember, with all of your ancestors behind you, you are the result of the love of thousands. This podcast was written and produced by our incredible team of writers and editors, and we are, as always, so grateful for President General Pamela Rouse Wright and Historian General Suzanne Heskey for their constant guidance, and to Sandy Raynor for being so generous with her time. The National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is a non-profit, non-political, volunteer women's service organization dedicated to preserving our American history, securing the nation's future through better education, and promoting American patriotism. Members are all lineal descendants of those who supported the cause of independence in the Revolutionary War. For more information, please visit dar.org. This is the DAR Today podcast.